Saturday must be the new Thursday because that was a Thursday night football game if I've ever seen one. Houston Texans take down the San Diego Los Angeles Chargers. Um, I mean, listen, that Texans offense didn't really do anything except for those back-to-back drives where they had like 60-yard daggers for touchdowns, and then from that point forward, it wasn't much going on for them, and then got even some gifts for defensively, from the Texans from C.J. Stroud, but then couldn't convert either a field goal or a missed field goal. And then, of course, the interception as well, which wasn't Herbert's fault by any stretch of the imagination. Some drop passes. This is a weird game because it's one of those things where I could say you could take it one of two paths right now, honestly. You could say this was a really bad game, and then you could, all the mistakes and go on and on and on, or you could say, hey, this is a game that you should have won, that you were in a position to win, but you just couldn't execute in that moment. As long as you execute, you'll be fine moving forward. Now, here's where I'm going to really try to stick the landing with this one. First, got to give a shout out to the Texans defense. That defense is just consistently elite. There's no cook in the books there. This defense is consistently elite and making things brutal for every single opposing quarterback. And it's just, again, it's a handshake moment of just like, yeah, man, you're legit. With that said, this Chargers offense was really set up, and Justin Herbert was set up to be better than what we saw Mahomes do, what we saw Josh Allen do. Like, they were in a position, especially the one interception could have been a touchdown. I mean, like, would have been more points, could have scored 24 points. Justin Herbert having to use his legs a lot. I believe he was the leading rusher. 6 carries, 37 yards. I mean, obviously didn't get a ton of run support, 21 for 32, 236 yards, 7.4, 4 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown. Again, 1 interception, hardly his fault. 5 sacks. He was obviously getting just ravaged all night. And then again, the passer rating is artificially low because of that. That's in the, just like, let's volleyball it. Let's just like tap it up for the defense. Beautiful play call though in the red zone for the touchdown for Gatson. I love that. But I mean, considering how good this defense was, it felt like a lot of the issues were self-inflicted from the Chargers, whether again it's missed field goals, etc. But defensively, again, and this is where it's weird, it was 2 really bad defensive plays that ultimately led to those touchdowns, right? 3 plays, 84 yards. You got the 75-yard touchdown pass. Then you had 3 plays for -4, and you punted it, and then you had another 43-yard touchdown pass. And it's like, okay, right, that's 14 points in those two drives. And then it was essentially nothing from that point forward. If I can just get this to do what I want it to do here. Then it was punt, interception, end of half, punt, field goal, end of game. So, and again, shout out to the Texans play calling for that. Like they knew what they wanted to do in that moment. They had their game plan. They were able to execute. They were able to get those 14 points. And again, C.J. Stroud giving you, especially you could say the one tip wasn't necessarily a gift. That was a good, play by the D-line. But the other one was certainly a gift. Like Kurt Warner was like, I don't know what C.J. Stroud was quite seeing there. And, and so you got the gift. And this is, though, where I'm like kind of struggling a bit because I talked about going into this game that I specifically wanted to see the offense for the Chargers up against this elite Texans defense. And I was just like, even if you win, if it's based on that, your defense swallowing up C.J. Stroud, forcing turnovers, et cetera, I'm like, that matters a little less to me because I just specifically want to see what can this offense do against that defense? Like, that's more important to me. There's always going to be some sort of variability with your defense in that regard. Sometimes you're going to give up some big plays. Sometimes, you're going to miss a tackle that's going to then lead to a 55-yard run. Like those things are just going to happen no matter how great your defense is. It just can't be locked down, shut down, hold them to 7 points every single game. It's just not going to happen. But I just really wanted to see how can this offense hold up against a truly elite defense. And if they were going to pull off a win here, especially if we, take away the mistakes and give them the touchdowns now based off those turnovers that you were able to force, Like you would have kind of won in that way. And so, but at the same time, the offense was able to survive in a way because, again, the mistakes felt self inflicted. Yeah, you were taking sacks. Yeah, you were, kind of struggling to get the ball to some playmakers. Lad Manicky really didn't touch the ball until, 5 minutes ago in the fourth or, whatever it was. Um, and so it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting. Like there was like a failure to really do anything with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. Failure to do anything, although some drops, but really just Patrick Mahomes unable to get anything going individually. I saw more positives here in this game from this Chargers offense. And so, when it boils down to it, when I'm looking at this game, because I'm obviously looking at it through a pretty hard playoff lens of like, what's the story here? What do we got moving forward into the playoffs? It's like, if I look at it from a Texans perspective, defense is legit. I know a couple players got banged up. I assume they'll be fine. Never know, but I assume they'll be fine. But that defense is legit. That defense is just consistently ready to just get after you. The offense, man, I just don't know. You have some beautiful play, some great play calling, some nice runs, but then you have some moments when you're just like, oh boy, this is a little shaky. Those turnovers were really bad, especially the second one. You were up, I think at the time, 14-3, closing out the half. Your defense is playing dominant. You got the lead. You did what you wanted to do in the first half. Just hand the ball off, or just quick, or just nice little easy, gentle 100% pass plays, in terms of like where you're going to catch the ball, like no, like a screen pass or something. 100% like success rate is what I mean to say. And it's just like, just do that. But instead, you throw the interception and you leave the door now wide open. The score easily could have been, what would it have been? 14-10, I think, that if you scored a touchdown, or at least 14-6, all still would have been within range from the Chargers' perspective. The defense is great. Again, you got gash on those two plays, but also the Texans' offense is clearly inconsistent, so there's not a lot of truly strong takeaways defensively going up against this Texans offense, because it's just too hard to draw much conclusions from what this offense from the Texans can do in any given moment. So that's why I was always really hyper-focused on the offense from the Chargers. And it's like they had their moments. It was clearly difficult. Like it was always going to be difficult against this team, but you had your moments. You had your really special moments, especially from Justin Herbert. The one throw where he was about to get wrecked and he was able to stay on his feet, his big run. He had his moments, but everyone else kind of fizzled away. And, even the play calling outside of the one play call that I really love for the touchdown, there wasn't many moments. Like CJ Stout had a couple moments when you were just like, beautiful play call, beautiful execution, hitting Nico in stride, middle of the field, et cetera, et cetera. Didn't see that much with the Chargers, didn't see many of those opportunities. But at the same time, I guess when I look at this game like here, it's tough with the better offense from the Texans. This game could have been a lot. This game could have almost been a blowout. And I guess like that's why I'm just trying to look at it through a playoff lens. Like what happens when you go up to a much better defense, and not a better defense, but just a more connected offense and defensive team? Is this game even remotely close? And it's just, I was just hoping for better information here. And because the Chargers failed, because I see that as a little bit more self-inflicted. Like even Kurt Warner kind of said at the end, he goes, listen, he said as they were closing up the broadcast, he said, the Texans dominated pretty much the entire game. Chargers did well, but they just made too many mistakes. And I think that's really a fair conclusion. If we were going to sum this up very succinctly, it's like the Texans were in control of this game start to finish, and the Chargers were in a position, but they had their too many mistakes, whether on defense or offense. And so it's just like I don't necessarily see this team as a team that's just riddled with mistakes there. So, this is just one of those games that I guess I just kind of like say, nah, not going to think too hard about it. Not going to lean too heavily into the conclusion. Mainly because where we're at this part of the season, I think, if we were earlier on in the season, you were still trying to like figure some things out. I just think I think at the end of the day, the margin of error really for both these teams, quite frankly, for different reasons, the margin of error is really small. The margin of error is really small. A couple mistakes by CJ Stroud, the door is wide open for the Chargers to now win that game. No matter how great your defense has played, boom, you're done. No matter how great the coaching was in the beginning of the game to get you, these guys open for touchdowns, doesn't matter. You lose the game. The Chargers' margin of error, your defense is getting you some turnovers here. You got 2 interceptions. Like, let's go. Both of them were essentially right there at the 30-yard, at the Texan zone, like 30 or so. Missed field goals, missed connections, interceptions, and you're just like, margin of error is just too small here. And so it's just in the playoffs. You got both these teams got to bring it. I mean, you got to play near perfect ball here. You got to play near perfect ball. The margin of error is just too small here. Too small here. But clearly, the Chargers were able to hold their own, relatively speaking, offensively with such an elite defense. And to me, that matters more than anything. Even though they weren't able to execute, a lot of it was more self-inflicted rather than their inability to just do it. And Justin Herbert, I think, was very much able to rise to the occasion. The one throw that he made that they thought was then going to be, an illegal forward pass. Him scrambling with his legs. The one pass that I talked about earlier where he was like, I don't even know how he stayed on his feet. But, he obviously took a lot of sacks, which was always to be expected. I'd like to see what the final number is for total pressures against him. Felt like a fair amount. It felt like though every time that the pressure was really on him, it led to a sack. And then the problem was that a couple of those sacks really were in a position to be pretty devastating, really force you in some long downs, as well as take you out of field goal range, etc., etc. And so you'd like to be able to figure out ways to kind of find your ways through those moments. Obviously the O-line is decimated, but, try to find some solutions to the problem here, because you're going to need them in the playoffs. Like every sack in a playoff game is absolutely critical. Every missed field goal in a playoff game is absolutely critical. This easily could have been a playoff game right here, and you lose this game. A game that you easily could have won, And then again, same thing for the Texans. It's like this is a game that you won that you easily could have lost because of your own mistakes as well. So that's why this game is weirdly messy to unpack. Honestly, it really is. It's weirdly messy to unpack. But hey man, at this point, a win is a win. And I never really talk like that. I'm never like a win is a win and a loss is a loss. At this point for both teams, a win is a win and a loss is a loss. The Texans won, the Chargers lost. Both teams got to be better. Both teams got to be better if they're going to win in the playoffs. That's what it boils down to. Both teams got to be better if you want to win in the playoffs. Probably unlikely that they face each other in that first round. I know they kept trying to talk about that in the broadcast. I mean, I guess it's technically possible. Seems kind of unlikely. It seems like the Texans are going to be the 5 seed, and then, the 6 and 7 seed has the potential to flip around here for the Chargers and the Bills. And I guess technically the Bills could win the division technically, but it seems like probably also unlikely. So, yeah, you're kind of fighting then to either play the Patriots or the Jags most likely. Feels like the Steelers are going to be playing the Texans. And then again, you have the situation with the Chargers and the Bills kind of flip-flopping between who's going to play the Patriots and the Jags. So we'll see. Although, listen, that can always be flipped on its head. You never know, but those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about this Chargers losing to the Texans, missing out on an opportunity for a long shot, but the number one seed, the division, etc., kind of solidifying their wild card spot, seemingly? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions, get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.